Back to Law and Crime. I do believe we should head to Las Vegas, Nevada now. This is the trial of former elected official Robert Tellis, the defendant accused of killing investigative reporter Jeff German for writing articles that were damaging to the defendant's career when he was in office. German wrote about Tellis's hostile work environment with employees, some story about an alleged affair that he had with one of his subordinates. Prosecutors believe that was Tellis' motivation to kill German after he lost his re-election bid. That was right after the first article was published. German was found stabbed to death outside his home back in September of 2022. He was 69 years old when he died. However, the defense says that their client is being framed because German, he's a politician. He's an investigative journalist, so he had a lot of enemies, right? It could have been a lot of them that took him out. Well, the defendant has pleaded not guilty. If convicted, Tellis could face up to life in prison. Yesterday, we heard testimony from the defendant's real estate agent, Zachary Schilling. He talked about the walkthrough, though keep focus on that, the walkthrough he did with the defendant while working together. He also shared his reaction to the evidence police released when investigating the murder of Jeff German. So let's head into court, listen to what he had to say.
But when you say walkthrough, you're literally walking through with Mr. Tellis?
That's correct.
So you get to see him literally walk?
Yes.
How long would a walkthrough typically take?
We could be there a half hour to an hour, or sometimes he could be in and out of there in 10, 15 minutes.
All right. On average, how many times a month would you be doing walkthroughs with Mr. Tellis?
Well, I would say that on average from 2020 to 2022, I'd see Mr. Tellis probably 1 to 3 times a month at least.
Okay, doing things like you've just described to us.
Yeah, especially during the heat of it, yes.
And the heat of being what?
The heat of when we were really turning houses for him.
Understood. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned 2020 to 2022, is that right?
Yes.
So about 3 years, roughly, or a little over 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay. At some point I want to turn your attention to September, very early September of 2022. Do you become aware of a journalist, Jeff German, passing away?
Yes.
I don't want to get into the substance of it, but how do you learn about it in general?
I saw how I learned that he died was, a picture on the news. Then shortly after that, I think there was police video or police photos that were released of the suspected person that had done that.
Do you remember kind of generally what the outfit was? What do you remember?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So what do you remember?
It was a sombrero, a flame construction vest, I think long sleeve shirt. The shoes were some Nikes.
Okay.
The Nikes like you find at Marshalls or Ross.
Okay. So you mentioned those Nikes. So when you see those images first released of the suspect walking around, does that catch your attention?
Yes. Yes,
Why?
It does. With the way that, just in the photos itself, and the likeliness of the photos and of Mr. Tellis were really, really close.
Is it just photos, or is there a video that you're seeing this person walk? In the videos released by the police, did you see the videos too?
Yes.
So you see this suspect walking. What are you thinking at that point?
That was on a Friday.
Okay.
And I'm like, boy, that really, boy, that really looks like somebody I know.
Okay, and who is the person you're thinking of?
I was thinking of Mr. Tellis.
So when you saw the video, the guys you described in the sombrero and the construction and the orange construction outfit, you thought the shoes reminded you of the shoes that Robert Tellis wore?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, and the gait.
Yeah, and the way that he walked, the way that he carried, the way that it was carried.
So when you see this, do you share these thoughts with anyone?
Well, with my partner, Christy, I'm like, holy crap, both of us agreed that really looked like Rob Tellis, but, to jump to a conclusion like that about somebody, you have to be pretty sure of yourself.
Okay, well, Mr. Tellis is shaking his head. He does not think whatever this real estate agent saw on video should have reminded him of Robert Tellez. Still with me, law and crime legal analyst Brian Buckmeyer, trial attorney Catherine Lizardo. So, Brian, we're going to talk about this video, and Catherine, I want you to chime in too. This is the real estate agent talking about having seen the killer, he says, walking on the sidewalk with a straw hat, construction clothing, and the question then becomes, for this ID, which is kind of unique, you got to compare the walkthrough that Tellez has done in the past with this guy. So look at the side-by-side comparison here. You have there he is, just walking with his lovely outfit on, and then walking through the hallway. I don't know, man. This is very interesting defendant ID evidence. Certainly, it's going to go to a matter of the jury believing it or not. They've got their own eyes. They can make their own evaluation. So, Brian, sell me on this, that, what we're hearing from this witness and what we just saw in those side-by-side shots is enough to positively ID the defendant.
Well, it's definitely a creative way of doing it. I've seen it done in my own cases. I think I talked briefly during the break about having a double robbery case where the other guy that I wasn't representing had a prosthetic leg, and he was identified by the limp. There are plenty of people, both experts and also lay people, who can look at the gait, and that's just the way a person moves, the length of their stride. If you look at the way his arms swivel, he kind of pauses when he puts his right leg down as he walks. And you can look and say, if he is walking naturally and the other person is as well, is it close enough to be able to identify that person? And if it eliminates any reasonable doubt, I mean, I'm looking at the right leg, and I'm thinking that he drops his right leg the same way as that person does in the straw hat. But I can't say for sure that that's that person. But like you said, it's up to the jury.
Yeah, and Catherine, as I'm looking at that, it's if it were, the guy's walking like Kaiser Sose, or he's, the Elephant Man, something that is very dramatic in Brian's own story about, the prosthetic leg. This just looks like a human guy, I guess, walking. I don't see the specific identifiers that the prosecution would hope the jury sees. I just don't see it. Do you see it?
It's not that big, and I think it will depend on the people who knows him best. That's why these real estate agents are the ones testifying. I noticed that he has a certain rhythm with the way he's walking, but like you mentioned, it's not that significant. So I would not have noticed it unless I was told to notice his gait. So when looking at the video where he was walking with his orange vest, you can tell that there was a rhythm of how he walks. And it sounds like that's how he walks every day or at any time. So the more people that comes in and says, yeah, he walks like that, and that's how I realized that's him when I saw the police video that was released, that's why I phoned it in, then that would be more damaging for him.
Hey, Brian, I know you would have done this. You have the comparison video. He's walking toward the camera at full speed. You have the one from the scene walking side to side in the frame and clearly slowed down. I think that's a mistake. If you're going to try and match it up for ID purposes, then match it up. What do you think?
Yeah, I would argue that it's too difficult to be able to distinguish, but I think what the judge would argue, to both of our chagrin to some extent, is that's not an issue of admissibility, but an issue of weight. And so you would leave it up to the jury to decide. But I think you're articulating arguments of not the right angle, different speed, slowed down, viewing him from a separate point of view. You can't differentiate between this. But I don't know. I'm looking at the right leg, and he drops that right leg in a very similar fashion. Drop, step, drop, step, drop, step. I would have a hard time arguing, but I still would. I know.
Well, you haven't convinced me, but I like the argument. To me, it's like, okay, he has a straw hat on. Nobody else has a straw hat. I mean, how many people have straw hats? Oh, there's one right there. See, you're making my point. It's not unique, and his walk is not unique. So I think it's a flimsy. Not the hat. I think the ID is just. It just doesn't. I'm not sold. Okay, let's take a break here. When we come back, as it would happen, they're back live in Tellez. They are out in Las Vegas, different time zone, but we're going to jump in there when we come right back to Law and Crime. Stay where you are.